My family uninvited me on a holiday trip, but they expected me to babysit their kids while they celebrated Mom's birthday. So I turned off my phone and went on a trip while they were standing with the kids at my door. My name is Vanessa, and at 34, I've spent the last 12 years building my career as a senior analyst at Hartwell and Associates in downtown Portland. While my younger sisters, Nicole and Sophie, were busy starting their families, I was climbing the corporate ladder. Don't get me wrong, I love my job. But sometimes late at night in my high-rise apartment overlooking the Columbia River, I wonder if I've missed out on something fundamental. No husband. No kids. Just me, my corner office with a view that stretches for miles, and a phone that never stops ringing with family requests. It was a regular Wednesday afternoon when my phone buzzed. Nicole's name flashed across my screen. At 28, my youngest sister had always been the cheerful one, the peacekeeper, the one who could talk anyone into anything. I answered while reviewing a client presentation, already sensing she wanted something. "Hey, Ness. Got a minute?" Her voice chirped with that familiar energy. "Sure. What's up?" I minimized a spreadsheet, half listening as I scanned through quarterly projections. "You know Mom's turning 65 in 6 weeks, right?" She paused for effect, the way she always did. "Well, we're planning something really special, and we need everyone to chip in." That got my attention. My chest tightened slightly. "Okay, how much are we talking about?" When Nicole named the figure, I nearly dropped my coffee. It was more than I'd spent on my last vacation, which, come to think of it, was 4 years ago when I attended a business conference in San Diego. For years. That was when it really hit me. "I know it's a lot," Nicole rushed to add, "but it's for Mom, you know?" No, it's fine," I said, already pulling up my banking app. "I'll transfer it right now." "Great," Nicole said with obvious relief. "Oh, and one more thing. Make sure you take a full week off work for the celebration. Don't plan anything else for that time, okay? It's really important." The request seemed odd, but I agreed. I always did. That was my pattern, my identity, my entire life wrapped up in one simple word. Yes, the next few weeks flew by in a blur of client meetings and project deadlines. I'd occasionally wonder what my sisters were planning with all that money, but whenever I asked, they brushed me off with vague responses about making it perfect for Mom. Eventually, work took over and Mom's birthday slipped to the back of my mind, buried under spreadsheets and conference calls. Then came the Saturday dinner that changed everything. We all gathered at our parents' house in Beaverton, Oregon. My mother and father, my sisters Nicole and Sophie, my Aunt Catherine and her kids, my cousins Derek and Stephanie. The familiar chaos of family dinner surrounded us like a warm blanket. Dad telling his old fishing stories. Mom fussing over everyone's plates, making sure no one's glass was empty. The usual warmth that made these gatherings feel like home, like the safest place in the world. That's when Nicole dropped her bomb, casual as you please while pushing her grilled chicken around her plate with calculated nonchalance. "So," she said, her voice light but deliberately casual, "we finally got everything arranged for Mom's birthday." The table erupted in excited chatter immediately. "We're all going to spend a week at Cascade Ridge Lodge," Nicole announced, her smile widening as she watched Mom's face light up like Christmas morning. Mom was beaming. Dad was already talking about the zipline course he'd heard about. My sisters were discussing which hiking trails they wanted to explore. And I was sitting there, completely blindsided, finally asking the question that should have been answered weeks ago. "Why didn't anyone tell me earlier?" I asked, feeling a bit left out, a bit dismissed. "I don't even have proper hiking gear, and there's barely any time to get everything ready." The table got quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. The table got quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes your stomach drop before you even understand why. Mom cleared her throat, and I felt something shift in the air, a change in pressure, like the moment before a storm hits. "Actually, sweetheart," Mom said with that particular tone she used when she was about to ask for a favor she knew I couldn't refuse. "We were hoping you could do us all a huge favor and watch the kids while we're there." I stared at my family gathered around the dinner table, waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was all a joke. I held my breath, counting the seconds. 5, 10, 15. But the silence stretched on, broken only by the soft clink of silverware against plates and the tick of the antique grandfather clock in the living room. "You want me to watch the kids?" I finally managed to say, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "All 6 of them?" My mind started counting them off automatically like some kind of painful inventory. Nicole's toddler, Mason. Sophie's baby girl Emma, cousin Derek's twins, Cameron and Alexis, and Stephanie's two boys, Parker and Lucas. 6 kids under the age of 8. 6 children who would need feeding, changing, cleaning, entertaining, disciplining, and constant supervision for an entire week while my entire family celebrated without me. Well, you're so good with them, Mom said, as if that explained everything, as if that justified everything. They love their aunt. I looked around the table again, still hoping to see a hint of humor in someone's eyes, a glimmer of recognition that this was absurd. There was none. Just expectant faces waiting for my usual automatic yes. But something inside me, something I'd been suppressing for years, started to crack. But that's not fair, I heard myself say, my voice sounding strange to my own ears, almost unfamiliar. I want to celebrate with everyone too. It's Mom's birthday. I want to be part of this. Sophie, my 30-year-old middle sister, put down her fork with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the world. Come on, Vanessa. You'll be bored there anyway. It's going to be noisy and crowded. You hate that kind of thing. Bored? I repeated, my voice rising slightly. How would you know if I'd be bored? You've never even asked me what I might want. Well, Sophie continued, exchanging glances with Nicole, you're great with the kids. They adore you. And, let's be honest, it's not like you need a break from family life. I felt my chest tighten as if someone had wrapped a rope around it and pulled hard. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I could feel where this was going. Nicole jumped in, her voice carrying that condescending tone she'd perfected over the years, the one she only used on me. She just means that you don't have children or a husband to get away from. The rest of us, we need this break. We need time away from the chaos. You understand, right? The roasted potatoes on my plate blurred as I blinked back tears. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. That was always the unspoken rule in our family. Tears meant you were being emotional. Being emotional meant you were being unreasonable. And being unreasonable meant you lost the argument before you even started. Instead, I quietly pushed back my chair and stood up. The legs scraped against the hardwood floor with a sound that seemed too loud in the heavy silence. Vanessa, Mom's voice held a note of concern, but not enough to actually stop me. Not enough to follow me. Not enough to see that I was breaking. Without a word, I grabbed my purse from the counter and headed for the door. Nobody moved to stop me. Nobody called out to me. Nobody ran after me down the hallway. The only sound that followed me was Mom's voice drifting from the dining room, matter of fact and dismissive. Don't worry, she'll be a little offended at first, but she'll come around. She always does. As I walked to my car, their voices faded behind me, already moving on to discussing hiking trails and campfire activities, as if I'd never been there at all. The evening air was crisp and cold against my face, helping to clear my head of the fog that had settled over it. As I gripped my steering wheel, one thought crystallized in my mind: 12 years of putting everyone else first, of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who always said yes, and this is what I got in return? The worst part wasn't even the babysitting request itself. It was the casualness with which they'd assumed I'd agree. The way they'd planned this entire trip without me, using my money, my time, my vacation days without even asking, as if I was just a resource to be used, not a member of the family to be included or considered. I spent half the night pacing around my apartment, replaying every family dinner, every holiday, every moment when I dropped everything to help someone else. The memories came flooding back like a tsunami, each one taking on a new, darker meaning in light of tonight's events. There I was at 18, making Thanksgiving dinner while Mom helped Nicole with her college applications. Me at 20, turning down a summer internship in New York to watch Mason for the summer, while Sophie completed her graduate program. At 23, working 2 jobs after grad school to help pay for Nicole's wedding. The images kept coming year after year, sacrifice after sacrifice, each one stacking up like bricks in a wall that was slowly suffocating me. I could still hear their voices in my head, echoing through time. Vanessa, can you watch Mason for a few hours? I really need a break. Vanessa, would you mind taking the twins for the weekend? We're just so exhausted. Ness, you're so good with kids. Can you handle all of them Sunday? We're having a couple's day. I'd always said yes. Always. Even when I had important presentations the next day. Even when I was exhausted from my own 60-hour work weeks. I'd taken pride in being the reliable one, the responsible sister, the perfect daughter who never disappointed anyone. But that pride was starting to taste like poison. I collapsed onto my leather couch, the cool material a shock against my skin. The photo albums on my coffee table caught my eye thick volumes filled with memories. I opened one almost against my will, flipping through page after page. There were family vacations where I was always the one behind the camera, never in the pictures. Holiday gatherings where I was always in the kitchen while everyone else laughed in the living room. Celebrations where I was present in body, but absent from the actual celebration itself. When was the last time someone had asked me what I wanted? Not what the family needed. Not what would be best for everyone. Not what would make Mom or Sophie or Nicole happy. When was the last time someone had asked Vanessa what she wanted? Nicole's words kept echoing in my head like a broken record you don't have children or a husband to get away from. As if my life, my career, my choices were somehow less valid because I didn't fit into their definition of what mattered. As if all my sacrifices meant nothing because they didn't include a wedding ring or a diaper bag. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I tossed and turned, remembering how I'd worked through college on full scholarship, determined not to burden my parents financially. How I'd started my career immediately after graduation, helping to put both my sisters through their final years of college. All those late nights at the office, climbing the corporate ladder, sending chunks of my salary home to help with family expenses, to help with bills, to help with life. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't a confrontational person. Never had been. There had to be a way to resolve this peacefully, to make them understand without causing a family rift that couldn't be repaired. So I did what I'd always done when there was a problem. I tried to fix it. I waited until a reasonable hour on Sunday morning before picking up my phone. Mom answered on the third ring, her voice still carrying that edge from our last interaction. "Hi, Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady and reasonable. "I've been thinking about the lodge trip. Actually, I have a solution. I'll pay for a professional nanny for all 6 kids. That way, everyone can enjoy the celebration together. I'll come to the lodge, participate in everything, and the children will be taken care of by someone qualified." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a moment too long. I could hear her breathing, could almost hear her mind working through how to dismiss this idea. "That won't work, Vanessa." Mom's voice was tight, controlled, the way it got when she didn't want to admit she was angry. "We can't trust some stranger with the children. They're used to you. They need you." "Mom, I want to be part of the celebration too," I tried to explain, hearing the desperation creeping into my voice. "I want to be there for your birthday. I want to matter to you as more than just free childcare. I could find a really good nanny, someone with excellent references, background checks, the works. Someone trustworthy." "You're not exactly a social butterfly," she cut me off, her voice sharp in a way that felt like a blade. "You'd probably be uncomfortable with all the noise and activity anyway. The children will keep you busy, and you enjoy spending time with them. It's perfect for everyone." "Mom, that's not," I started to say, but she didn't let me finish. The click of the call ending echoed in my ear before I could respond. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear as my mother's words sank in. She hadn't even bothered to say goodbye. She hadn't even given me the courtesy of ending the conversation on my own terms. I was still staring at my phone, processing my mother's abrupt dismissal, when it buzzed again. Nicole's name flashed across the screen, and her first words came before I could even say hello. "How dare you?" she hissed, her voice sharp with fury. "Mom just told me about your little suggestion about hiring a nanny. Are you trying to ruin everything?" I sat up straighter, my sister's hostile tone catching me off guard like a physical blow. "Ruin everything? I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone. I'm trying to be there for Mom's birthday, and we already have a solution." Lauren's voice rose, cutting me off mid-sentence. "Everything's planned, Vanessa. Everything. And now you're being completely selfish, trying to change all our arrangements at the last minute." The accusation hit me like a slap across the face. I'd been called a lot of things in my life, but selfish was never one of them. Until now. Until I finally tried to do something for myself. "I'm being selfish?" I asked, my voice rising slightly. "Nicole, you didn't even." "Yes, you are," she interrupted. "We've been planning this for weeks. Everyone's excited. The lodge is booked. The activities are scheduled. And now you want to throw a wrench into everything because you can't just do this one thing for the family." My hands started shaking as I gripped the phone. One thing. As if it was only one thing. As if 12 years of sacrifice could be reduced to a single request that I should simply comply with. "If you ruin this trip for everyone, if you spoil Mom's birthday celebration," Nicole continued, her voice taking on a threatening tone I'd never heard from her before, "don't bother talking to me again." "I mean it, Vanessa." The line went dead. I sat there stunned by my baby sister's threat, a threat that felt more like a declaration of war, when my phone buzzed with incoming messages. This time from Sophie. Multiple messages came through in rapid succession, each one designed to pile on the guilt. Family needs to stick together, her first text read. We all help each other out, came the second. Remember when I picked up your dry cleaning last month when you were swamped at work? She typed. And then, you're good with the kids. They love you. Why can't you just forget about being resentful and think about what's best for the family? My fingers flew across the keyboard as I replied, something I rarely did. Usually I just accepted the guilt and moved on. But something had shifted inside me. A real family doesn't take advantage of each other, I typed. A real family respects each other's wishes and includes everyone in their plans. A real family doesn't manipulate and guilt trip each other. I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear several times as she composed and deleted her response, but no actual message came. Silence. The loudest response of all. That's when it hit me like a lightning bolt. The way they'd asked for money without explaining what it was for. The careful way they'd told me to take time off work without mentioning the lodge. The casual way they'd announced their plans at dinner as if everything was already set in stone, already decided, already written in permanent ink. They'd planned this all along. While I was working late nights at the office, while I was babysitting their kids without being asked, while I was being the perfect daughter and sister, they were secretly arranging this trip. They'd used my money, arranged my schedule, and planned to dump 6 children on me without so much as a conversation. Without consent. Without consideration. Without seeing me as anything other than a means to their end. And now that I wasn't playing along with their script, now that I dared to suggest an alternative, they were trying every manipulation tactic they could think of. Guilt. Threats. Emotional blackmail. Accusations. They were pulling out every weapon in their arsenal to force me back into the box they'd created for me, a box I was finally starting to see was suffocating me. Something strange happens when you finally see through the fog of manipulation. Suddenly, everything becomes crystal clear. The fog lifts, and you can see the landscape of your relationships with new eyes. I felt lighter than I had in years, as if someone had lifted an enormous weight off my shoulders. The guilt that had been weighing me down was replaced by something else entirely. Determination. I opened my laptop and started searching. Within an hour, I had booked a beachfront resort in Maui. Nothing too extravagant, but it had a private lanai overlooking the Pacific Ocean and was within walking distance of everything I might need. Fresh flowers on the nightstand. A hot tub built into the private patio. A spa on site. I even splurged on a first-class plane ticket. After all, I had plenty of money since I wouldn't be at Cascade Ridge Lodge. Money I'd planned to spend on my own happiness for once, instead of on everyone else's celebrations. The decision made, I felt lighter still. Free in a way I'd never experienced before. The next few days at work were surprisingly peaceful. My family had stopped calling and texting. They probably thought I was at home sulking, preparing for a week of childcare, maybe buying extra snacks and planning activities for 6 kids. The thought made me smile as I packed my sundresses and new swimsuit into my luggage. I'd bought pieces I'd been wanting for years, but never felt justified purchasing. Sundresses in bright tropical colors. A bikini I'd never have the confidence to wear around my family. Cover-ups that made me feel like someone interesting instead of someone functional. Taking a tropical vacation in the middle of fall? My colleague Marcus asked when he saw me checking the Hawaiian weather forecast at my desk. He was grinning, curious about this break in my usual pattern. Sometimes you need to do something unexpected, I replied, surprised by how good it felt to say those words out loud. Surprised by how right it sounded. Sometimes you need to remind yourself that you matter. The morning of my flight, I took one last look around my apartment. I'd cleaned everything meticulously, force of habit, I suppose. The empty fridge, the properly locked windows, the thermostat set to an eco-friendly temperature, everything in perfect order, just like always. Except this time, I wouldn't be here to answer any desperate phone calls for babysitting. No one knew where I was. No one could find me if they wanted to. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely unreachable, and it felt like freedom. As the plane took off, I switched off my phone and tucked it into my bag. No social media, no email, no family drama, no urgent requests, just me, the beach, and a whole week of freedom stretching out before me like an open book waiting to be written. The Hawaiian air hit me like a warm embrace when I stepped out of the airport. Palm trees swayed in the gentle ocean breeze, and I could smell the plumeria flowers blooming everywhere in shades of pink and white and yellow. My resort was even better than the pictures. The lanai offered a perfect view of the endless blue horizon, and I could hear the waves crashing against the shore in a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with my heartbeat. That first afternoon, I walked barefoot on the beach, letting the warm sand squeeze between my toes in a sensation that felt almost sacred. When was the last time I'd done something like this? When was the last time I'd done anything just for me? Without feeling guilty about it? Without wondering if I should be somewhere else, helping someone else, being what someone else needed me to be, I swam in the crystal clear water, read a novel without interruption, and had dinner at a quiet oceanfront restaurant when no one needed me to cut their food or clean up their spills. I watched the sunset from my lanai, sipping a Thai mango cocktail, something I'd never ordered before, without a single thought about bedtime routines or morning schedules or what someone else needed from me. For 6 glorious days, I existed only for myself. I took a surfing lesson and didn't feel self-conscious about being terrible at it. I hiked to a hidden waterfall and sat by the pool afterward reading. I ate fresh pineapple for breakfast. I fell asleep to the sound of waves every night and woke up without an alarm, without a plan, without a sense of obligation hanging over my head. My last morning in Hawaii, I savored my final moments of peace. I knew I'd have to turn my phone back on eventually, face whatever chaos I'd left behind. I wasn't naive. I understood that my absence would have consequences. But I hadn't expected quite what I found when I finally powered up my phone and stepped back into the digital world. When my phone finally powered up at the airport, it started buzzing nonstop. Messages, voicemails, calls, hundreds of them. The timestamps showed they started exactly a week ago, early in the morning. My hands trembled slightly as I began scrolling through them, my stomach sinking with each notification. The first messages were from Nicole, "Where are you?" "We're outside your apartment." Then Sophie, "Vanessa, open the door. The kids are getting restless." Then Derek, "Hey, we brought Cameron and Alexis like we planned. Are you home?" Then Stephanie, "Vanessa, what's going on?" "Parker and Lucas keep asking for their auntie." As I read through the messages, I could picture the scene perfectly. My sisters and cousins standing outside my empty apartment building with 6 confused children, their suitcases packed for the lodge, their carefully laid plans crumbling around them like a sandcastle at high tide. I felt a pang of guilt. I'm human, after all, but underneath it was something stronger. Validation. They'd done this. They'd created this situation through their own choices. The tone of the messages changed quickly from confusion to panic. "Vanessa, this isn't funny. Where are you? Pick up your phone. What are we supposed to do with the kids? You can't just disappear like this." Then came the anger. Nicole's messages turned nasty. "You selfish witch. How could you do this to us? Are you seriously that ungrateful?" Sophie wasn't much better. "I can't believe you're this immature. Mom's birthday is ruined because of you. Do you even care how this looks to everyone?" Aunt Catherine's messages made me wince. I'd never seen her use that kind of language before. "You ungrateful little brat. You've ruined everything. These children were counting on you. What kind of person does this?" Mom's messages started later in the day, and they were the ones that hurt the most, precisely because they were delivered with a tone of disappointment rather than anger. "I'm so disappointed in you, Vanessa. I never thought you'd be this selfish after everything we've done for you. You've broken my heart. Dad, who rarely texted, had sent just one message: your mother is crying. I hope you're happy with yourself." The voicemails were worse. I could hear the anger, the disappointment, the accusations in their voices. Messages from extended family members I hadn't talked to in months suddenly appeared. All of them condemning my behavior, parroting the story they'd been told. "You've always been so reliable. How could you do this to your own family? Those poor children. You've ruined everything. What kind of daughter treats her mother like this on her birthday?" I sat there in my peaceful resort room reading message after message, learning exactly what my family thought of me when I finally stopped being their convenient solution. The words they used, the names they called me, the assumptions they made about my character, it was like meeting a whole new family, one that had been hiding behind fake smiles and casual requests for favors all these years. But underneath the hurt was clarity. This was who they were when they didn't get what they wanted. This was who they became when faced with a mirror reflecting their own behavior back at them. And I didn't have to accept it anymore. Without responding to any of them, I packed my bags and headed to the airport. It was time to go home. But I wasn't the same Vanessa who had left a week ago. That Vanessa might have apologized, might have felt guilty, might have tried to make it up to everyone by staying home next time, by babysitting twice as much, by sacrificing more of herself. But that Vanessa was gone, left behind on a beach in Hawaii with her feet in the sand. I had just finished unpacking my beach clothes when I heard the aggressive pounding on my front door. The sound of it echoed through my apartment like an invasion. Before I could even reach it, I heard a key turning in the lock, the emergency key I'd given my mother years ago, just in case of a real emergency. This wasn't a real emergency. This was emotional terrorism. They burst in like an angry storm. Mom leading the charge, Sophie and Nicole flanking her sides, all of them red-faced and wild-eyed. The peaceful feeling I'd cultivated in Hawaii evaporated instantly, replaced by something colder and harder. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Nicole screamed, stepping forward. "You ruined everything. Everything." I stood my ground, watching them unleash their fury in my living room. The same living room where I'd babysat their children countless times, where I'd canceled my own plans to accommodate their emergencies, where I'd always been the reliable one. Not anymore. Greg and Brandon refused to stay with the kids, Sophie spat out, referring to their husbands. They both suddenly had important business trips they couldn't cancel. So Nicole had to stay home with all 6 children while we went to the lodge. "She missed Mom's birthday because of you," Nicole added, her voice shaking with rage. The whole trip was ruined. Nobody could enjoy themselves. "We spent the whole time talking about how you betrayed us, how you let everyone down." Mom chimed in, her voice rising. "Your father couldn't even enjoy the ziplining. He was so upset about what you did. You've embarrassed this family. Do you understand the position you've put us in?" They continued their tirade, talking over each other, each one trying to outdo the others in expressing their disappointment and anger. But as I stood there listening to their accusations, something shifted inside me. They continued their tirade, talking over each other, each one trying to outdo the others in expressing their disappointment and anger. But as I stood there listening to their accusations, something shifted inside me. The more they talked, the more absurd it all seemed. They were standing in my apartment, using a key I'd given them in trust, screaming at me for not sacrificing my own life for their convenience. The irony was almost funny. Until something inside me actually broke, but not in the way they expected. I started laughing. Not hysterical laughter, but real, genuine laughter that came from deep in my belly. The sound of my laughter cut through their accusations like a knife, stopping them mid-sentence. They stared at me as if I'd lost my mind, which maybe I had. Maybe losing my mind was the same thing as finding my sanity. "What's so funny?" Mom demanded, her face flushing darker. "What could possibly be funny about this situation? You've destroyed your family." I wiped tears of laughter from my eyes, still smiling. "Don't you see how ridiculous this is? Do you really not understand how absurd you all sound right now?" "Absurd?" Sophie sputtered. "What's absurd about you secretly planned this entire trip?" I interrupted, my laughter fading, but my voice steady and clear in a way it had never been before. "You decided without asking me that I would watch your children. You took my money, told me to take time off work, and then just assumed I would fall in line with your plans. And now that everything fell apart because of your assumptions, you're here calling me the villain. You're standing in my apartment, using a key I trusted you with, screaming at me for not doing what you demanded without asking. But you've always helped before," Mom said, her voice smaller now, confused by this version of me they'd never encountered. "You've never said no. And that's exactly the problem," I cut in, my voice quiet but firm. "I always helped. You started taking advantage of me. You stopped seeing me as a daughter or a sister and started seeing me as free childcare. You stopped considering my feelings, my plans, my life. You stopped seeing me at all." "That's not true," Nicole protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Then why didn't you include me in the planning? Why didn't you ask me if I wanted to go to the lodge? Why did you just assume I'd be happy to stay behind with 6 children while everyone else celebrated? Why did my entire existence get reduced to my utility?" I watched their faces, hoping to see some recognition, some understanding of how they'd treated me. Instead, I saw their expressions harden, becoming defensive and closed off. "You're being selfish," Mom said, her voice cold and cutting. "You've ruined my birthday. You've hurt your sisters. You've disappointed the children. This isn't how I raised you. I didn't raise you to be this ungrateful." I felt the last thread of hope snap inside me. It was over. Whatever chance there might have been for understanding and reconciliation, for real conversation and healing, was gone now. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "You're the ones being selfish. This whole situation is your fault, not mine. You used me. You took advantage of my love for you and my desire to be helpful. You made me feel like my only value was in what I could do for you. But I'm not that anymore. Mom drew herself up to her full height, her face like stone, carved from anger and pride. If that's how you feel, then perhaps I don't have a daughter named Vanessa anymore. The words hung in the air between us, brutal in their finality. If that's what you want, Mom, I said quietly, then so be it. It's been 8 weeks since that final confrontation in my living room. 8 weeks of silence broken only by the occasional notification when one of my family members makes another thinly veiled post on social media. My mother posted last week, "Some people only think about themselves." The post had a dozen sympathetic comments from relatives and family friends who only knew her version of the story. Nicole posted yesterday with a photo of Mason family should always come first. So blessed to have people in my life who understand what that really means. Sophie's latest was a long paragraph about toxic people who destroy family bonds with their selfishness. She didn't tag me, of course, but everyone knew who she was talking about. A few months ago, these posts would have devastated me. I would have spent hours crafting responses in my head, losing sleep over their words, wondering if maybe they were right, if maybe I was being selfish. But now I just scroll past them, sometimes with a small smile at how predictable they've become. They can't hurt me anymore because I've stopped needing their approval. I've changed my routine. Instead of spending my weekends on standby for emergency babysitting calls, I've joined a local hiking group. The first outing felt strange, walking through the Cascade foothills on a Saturday morning, knowing my phone wouldn't ring with a desperate plea from one of my sisters. But it also felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. I was doing something for me. By choice. Without guilt. Last week, I booked another vacation, a trip to Italy in the spring. I didn't have to check with anyone's schedule or make sure it wouldn't conflict with someone else's needs. I just saw a good deal, looked at the itinerary, and thought about how much I wanted to see the Colosseum and the canals of Venice. I booked it. That simple. That free. Sometimes in quiet moments, I think about my nieces and nephews. I miss them, but not the way they were used as weapons against me, not the way their needs were weaponized to keep me in line. I hope that someday when they're older, they'll understand. Maybe they'll even recognize the same patterns in their own lives and choose differently. Maybe they'll remember their Aunt Vanessa and understand that I love them, but I couldn't set myself on fire to keep them warm. I still have the emergency key Mom use.